to unmute yourself or share in the chat, whatever's easier for you. I'm definitely not offended if you have to go off camera. All of that is totally fine with me. Yeah, that's a great thought, Holly. My colleague Holly just chimed in and said, you know, we are a relatively small group today. We could go and do a quick round of introductions, especially for Holly's sake, since she's new to the group. So let's see here. I'm going to start. In my view, I see Charmin first. So Charmin, do you want to unmute yourself and say hi?
Hi, I'm Charmin Plant. I'm here in Lockhart with a Lockhart Head Start. I have Head Start and Early Head Start. We serve 50 children.
Excellent, thank you. Belinda, you're next for me.
Hello, everyone. My name is Belinda Pisana. I am the health coordinator here in San Marcos, the Head Start program.
And are you Dina or Deanna Juarez?
Deanna.
Perfect.
Deanna Juarez. I'm with Lockhart ISD. I'm the Director of Community Education.
Excellent. And next I see Elogia.
Hi, my name is Elogia Martinez. I am the Bonham Pre-K principal at SMC ISD, and I also have Head Start on our campus.
And Megan.
Hello, my name is Megan Campbell, and I am currently serving in Alex's former role as interim home visiting program director for Community Action, Inc. But my primary role is parents as teachers coordinator.
And then Valencia.
Hi, I'm Valencia Jenselin. I am a family engagement specialist with the Texas Institute for Excellence in Mental Health, and I provide family input under with the Thrive Grant.
Excellent. And Patricia? I think you might have messaged that you're having some tech issues, so that's okay. Let's see, Sherry Hernandez.
Yes, I'm Sherry Hernandez, and I'm the Lockhart ISD Clubhouse Child Development Center Director.
Excellent. Miss Marjorie.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marjorie Douglas. I'm with the Department of State Health Services. I'm a provider representative for the Texas Health Steps program.
Excellent. Priscilla.
Hi, I'm Priscilla Goebel. I'm faculty at Texas State in Human Development and Family Sciences.
Perfect. And then I know Jackie is home with a little one, so I'm not going to pressure her into going on camera necessarily unless we all want to look at the baby, which is fine.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I have a meeting assistant, Alu, come here, over here with me today, who is sneaking into the closet. But my name is Jackie. I am the Child Find and Outreach Coordinator for Any Baby Can Early Childhood Intervention Program, or ECI. I'm covering for Amber Jensen today, who supports me in outreach in the Hayes area. So I will be here and participating. Holly, I'm so happy to see your face. Oh my goodness. Hello, friend. And all of you as well. I haven't seen Holly in so long. But yeah, I'm here. Call me out. I'm listening, but I do have an assistant who may just take over the entire meeting if I don't take my camera off. Thanks, Alex.
All right. I think we got through a full round of introductions, which feels really nice. Almost as nice as being in person, almost. Holly, of course.
You want me to introduce myself?
Absolutely.
Hi, everyone. My name is Holly Gerstlin. I work alongside Valencia at the Texas Institute for Excellence in Mental Health. Part of Project Thrive is how we are connected to this coalition work. We offer technical assistance and support to help grow efforts that are pre-existing and help provide any supports that would help you all grow in any way that you are excited about. So thank you for having us and allowing us to be a part of the group for the next, I guess, year or so.
Excellent. So I went ahead and popped up on the screen the agenda for today. You are currently experiencing the welcome. Welcome, everybody. And we are going to, I think many of you had an opportunity, although I can't say for certain, to see and potentially participate in the ThoughtExchange. So through our partnership with Thrive, which we'll describe a little bit more in detail in just a moment, we've had an opportunity to use this really interesting tool called ThoughtExchange. So I'm going to unshare for just a second and share my slides. Okay. Righty. So let's dive right in. So as you can see, my colleague and I, Michelle Harper with United Way, we are the co-leads for this collaborative effort. Just a little more information about the collaborative. Back in 2015, when we initially received funding from the Department of Family and Protective Services to start an early childhood coalition, we were pretty focused on just Hays County at the time, and we were using the name the Early Childhood Coalition of Hays County. Then a few years ago, we had an opportunity with some additional funding for home visiting that was expanding out to Caldwell County to go ahead and grow our coalition effort out that direction as well. And around the same time, we applied for status as a Start Smart community through the United Ways of Texas, and started using the name Start Smart Hays and Caldwell. The goals of this collaborative, we kind of have three different areas that we're focused on: improving community health and wellness, promoting kindergarten readiness, and improving family engagement. And under each of those goal areas, we have specific actions that we've been working on as a collaborative, addressing developmental screening and monitoring, improving food security, increasing prenatal care in the first trimester, improving access to high quality early care and education, promoting a high quality home learning environment, and increasing father engagement with their children. So now I'm going to mute myself for a second and let Holly talk a little bit more about the Thrive initiative through the Texas Institute for Excellence in Mental Health.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Again, thank you for allowing me a few minutes here to just kind of explain our role. So Texas Thrive is a grant through the Department of State Health Services that is looking to help develop early childhood coalitions across the state, and then in partnership, help inform state leaders by providing recommendations, by doing focus groups, by doing a bunch of research to help them understand how to support local early childhood coalitions, what they might need to do to help create structure for, funding for, long-term sustainable support for all the early childhood work going on across the state. We had the opportunity to put out an RFP to work with 3 different early childhood coalitions, and Smart Start Hays Caldwell was one of those that was selected. And Early Matters El Paso is our second. Houston Infant Toddler Coalition is the third. So we are working with all 3 coalitions, all on different spectrums of, size, work, et cetera, all to basically provide any support, research, technical assistance that we can to help elevate the work you're already doing. So we are excited to be joining alongside you in your work for the next year or 2. And we primarily, you'll see us working with your leadership, and then attending meetings where we can, or hosting any events like today for a few minutes that we can. And otherwise keeping kind of a pulse on the needs of your group and the work that you're all doing, and providing any support that we can. If you have any questions, please, of course, let me know. You can also look us up through the Texas Institute for Excellence in Mental Health website, which is a long name. I'll stick that in the chat box for you if you're interested in just kind of reading a little bit more about the work that we're doing.
All right, excellent. So now I'm going to dive into all of the amazing data that we were able to collect from the ThoughtExchange. I'm going to kind of start off with the demographic data that was collected. Oh, actually, I'm going to start off with the question. So the way thought exchanges work is you typically start with kind of a fairly broad and thought-provoking question to establish the direction for the thought exchange. So knowing that this collaborative effort has been ongoing with some consistency since way back in 2015, and knowing that over the past couple of years, so much has changed in our communities, we really wanted to get a handle on those priorities that I listed previously that are part of the goals that we set as a coalition. Are those still the priorities for everybody at the table? Have things changed so significantly for children and families in our communities over the past couple of years that we need to regroup and really dive into another round of strategic planning to figure out what our next steps need to be as a collaborative? So the question at hand, what are these early childhood priorities for our families and communities that we want to focus on over the coming years? And so with that question in mind, we had 29 folks share 29 unique thoughts and then go through and with 312, which is an amazing number of ratings. So that means with those 29 thoughts, 29 participants went through and rated these individual thoughts with the stars, 5 being that's an amazing thought, I totally agree 100%, or down to 0 or no stars. I don't agree with that, or I don't think that's a priority. So one of the questions we asked at the very beginning of the thought exchange was, how are you staying informed of coalition activities? And I realized that because of this new role that I've taken as interim Head Start program director, we haven't had a meeting this year. This is our first one. So attending meetings, at least in calendar year 2022, hasn't been a thing most people have been doing. But thinking prior to that, how have folks stayed informed of the activities of the coalition? And so a lot of folks are getting most of their information via email. And obviously we are eager, Holly and I, in discussing this information to ensure that we are meeting the needs of the folks who want to be involved in this collaborative effort, having meetings at times and in places where people are able to attend is a priority for us. So there'll be more to come on that. We might be following up with the entire kind of list of folks who are here today and those folks who regularly receive emails from me to figure out if there maybe is a better time and date to do these meetings, if in person might be better for some folks versus this virtual option, if we need to maybe host some meetings in Lockhart and in San Marcos from time to time so that everybody has a chance to attend in person, etc. And then we also wanted to figure out, from which sectors were the participants in this thought exchange joining us. So an example, for me, I would have selected 2 of these options, right? So you have a lot of people who would be selecting multiple options in this case. I work for a nonprofit, but I'm also a birth to 5 service provider. So I've selected both of those. So there are plenty of folks who are probably going through and saying like, yep, I work in higher ed, but maybe I'm also on the board of a nonprofit and going ahead and selecting both. So you find folks multi-selecting from that one, but obviously we do see a lot of folks from the nonprofit sector. Government probably, my guess would be, includes things like WIC, because in our area, WIC is through the city of San Marcos. So it is actually through local government. Higher education, obviously we have a huge institution here at Texas State, but then we're also partnering with UT Austin in this effort. And then obviously our partnerships with Lockhart ISD, San Marcos CISD, and some of the other school districts in the area are in that. We wanted to gather this race ethnicity data as well. kind of looking at the demographics of our communities and trying to figure out if our coalition members, the folks who were involved in the Thought Exchange, matched what we see in the communities that we serve. And this data is telling us, although kind of challenging to see it as a full breakdown, that we need to do a better job of recruiting folks into this collaborative effort that are in line with the demographics of the communities that we serve. And likewise with the question that we asked about LGBTQIA, to ensure that we are recruiting folks that are representative of the communities we serve, because we know these folks are living and raising children across Hays and Caldwell counties, and we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to share their experiences as well. All right, now we get to dive in. So the Thought Exchange tool is really exciting for me. As someone who really enjoys some good data and a fun visual, this is like a marriage of two things I love. So the dashboards and the kind of user interface for the tool, I found really interesting to work with. The kind of behind the scenes part of Thought Exchange creates a lot of interesting slides and reports for you to go through. And the AI, the software will actually pull out for you which are the top rated thoughts within the system. So as everybody had an opportunity to go through, put in their own thoughts, and then rate the thoughts of others, these are the 3 thoughts that kind of rose to the top as the most highly rated by the highest number of people. So at the very bottom, right above the stars, you're going to see the overall rating for that thought and the number of people who rated that thought. So the highest rated thought would be that one, the first one, kindergarten readiness, early intervention services, and family support as the key thought. There were 17 folks out of all the participants who rated that thought, and the majority of them rated it highly, which is how I got to an average of 4.1 stars. So really identifying the fact that catching those developmental delays early behooves all of us, so that we can ensure children are ready for school when it's time to start kindergarten. The second most highly rated thought is about tuition rates, which I'm assuming here is talking about childcare subsidy, and that those childcare subsidy reimbursement rates have to increase so that we can stabilize our early care and education workforce. And I will say, having now been in a leadership position in the Head Start program since about mid-December, I fully agree with this because our workforce is struggling. I know this has been a conversation at the national level. It's a conversation that's happening in the K through 12 space as well, with teachers leaving the field. And so I really want to lift this one up as a newer priority for our work, because it has gotten so much attention on the national stage as well. And then the final most highly rated thought, which kind of speaks to the demographic slides that I shared earlier, is ensuring that we have a diverse array of folks at the table, so that when we are having discussions about the needs of children and families, we are informed by the lived reality for folks in our communities. I've had the pleasure of being able to raise my kids in San Marcos and have them attend San Marcos CISD schools, but my experience is just my experience. So I can speak to that as a white woman with white children experiencing the public education system, but I can't speak to the experience of others. And that's why it's important for us as a collaborative to ensure that we're creating a space where we can bring in folks who don't look like me, who have an opportunity to share their experiences. And that will help all of us be able to ensure that they're meeting the needs of everybody. And feel free, again, because we're a relatively small group today, if you have any questions, any points of clarification or anything at all, feel free to unmute yourself and I would love to hear from you. Okay, so another neat kind of tool within the ThoughtExchange is that the software will actually pull out theme areas based on the information that's put into the thoughts that we all submitted. So as we were, sitting there and we were typing in our own thoughts and then rating the thoughts of others, the software in the background was pulling out language that it saw repeated over and over and over again. So it saw these themes based on just the frequency that these words popped up in our thoughts. So parents and families, obviously that one's going to come up a lot. Children and early childhood. Again, obviously, those are the two biggest areas that we're talking about. I'm actually really happy whenever I am having conversations about early childhood and folks are really focusing on the needs of parents and families, as opposed to trying to create solutions that are just closed within other systems. So saying that's a problem of schools, that's a problem of childcare, that's a problem of Head Start, that's a problem of home visiting. Really lifting up the fact that we need to be supporting parents and families because, as we often say, parents are our children's first and best teachers, and so we need to be supporting them in that really important role. The thing that I want to call attention to that was actually honestly surprising to me to a degree was the term mental health and how frequently it came up. I think if we had been having this, if we'd been using ThoughtExchange, if we'd done this ThoughtExchange 3 years ago, I don't know if that would be the case. I think other things might have been a priority. I do know basic needs still comes up a lot in these conversations, in part because of the impact of the pandemic and inflation and cost of living for all of our families. But mental health came up more. And I think that's really interesting. And one of the reasons that we are kind of all here today. So these are the key thoughts that were kind of in the parent and family bucket, so to speak. Again, I included the ones that had that combination of highly rated plus a high number of folks who engage with that thought, because that means that one was, people were kind of attracted to it, they were interested in that one, and then they went ahead and rated it highly. So the most highly rated thought was about language development and pre-reading skills, which is a really exciting one to kind of dive into, because obviously that's so important, especially in further conversations about social emotional well-being of children. Language development is also a huge part of that. So that was our most highly rated. Again, talking about parents and their very important role as the first and best teachers of their children, and trying to identify what kind of supports are available in the community for families, whether it's formal parenting classes, case management, kind of what all of those things look like. Then we do get into those basic needs. So identifying the fact that food insecurity, housing prices, access to transportation, the kind of stress, when any of those things are impacted negatively for a family, the amount of stress that causes on the family system, really identifying the fact that has such an impact on a parent's capacity, a family's capacity to raise their young children. The final piece that came up in this, in the key thoughts related to parents and families, was about developmental screenings, and really focusing on the fact that families deserve to know where their children are developmentally, so that they should have access to developmental screenings, not just in the pediatrician's offices, but maybe across multiple different spaces and places within the community, to ensure, as the person who submitted this thought, that no children fall through the cracks. And really identifying developmental screening as an opportunity to ensure that. Does anybody have any questions or anything that they wanted to discuss in regard to the thoughts about parents and families? Because I'll just keep talking. We know this about me.
We love to hear you talk, Alex. Keep going.
Thank you. I appreciate you. So our next kind of bucket area was the children and early childhood. So again, from kind of prenatal to birth all the way through kindergarten entry. And the most highly rated thought in this category was one of the most highly rated thoughts overall, which was that focus on kindergarten readiness and the need to ensure earlier intervention and family support, addressing delays in physical, educational, social development. So that one, again, highly rated overall, but especially in the category of children and early childhood. The next most highly rated within this area was, again, about screenings. So we're still seeing screenings, developmental monitoring as a top priority. I feel like that's kind of clearly coming through as we're looking at this, the need to ensure that children and families have access to the opportunity to receive a developmental screening. In this case, also identifying the need to screen for social emotional delays and concerns. So, and, building on what we've learned over the past decade or more about brain development and the need to intervene early, so that we can address those delays and ensure that kiddos are starting kindergarten ready. The final piece, which is kind of a little bit of a departure from the other areas, is kind of an overall awareness building piece. So maybe I'm even thinking about, like, how are we communicating with the communities that we work in about the importance of early childhood overall, so that we can really ensure that folks have an opportunity to advocate, parents have an opportunity to advocate, caregivers, service providers have an opportunity to advocate, and say, hey, this is a really critical period for children and families. And so we need to invest and we need to provide the highest quality of services during this time frame. Okay, and so this piece, again, very interesting to me, that we had so many folks bringing up the mental health piece, especially considering the birth to 5 population. I am someone who, believes very deeply, and for a while was even had gone through a certification to have my infant early childhood mental health credential, because I'm such an advocate for infant and early childhood mental health. So I say that to say, there are plenty of folks, not folks in this room per se, who don't necessarily think too much about the mental health needs of children from ages birth to 5. They might have an understanding of the mental health needs of older children, and the need to maybe intervene with middle school and high school age kids to address their mental health needs. But as the person who wrote out this first thought pointed out, prevention is key. And we have the capacity in the first 5 years of life to introduce a lot of social emotional education and provide tools and support to young children and their families, so that we can kind of address any areas of concern and really build up a young child's toolkit to be able to successfully navigate that as they get older. The second thought actually speaks to the specific strategy that could be implemented to address mental health. So mental health consultation in the early education field. These mental health consultation programs typically look like having someone with a clinical background coming into a space, whether it's a Head Start classroom, a pre-K classroom, a childcare center, and consulting with the adult caregivers for those children about meeting the needs of kiddos who are maybe struggling with some of their behaviors in that classroom environment, and potentially even consulting with the parents of that child so that they can bring some of the tools and resources that the teacher is using in the classroom to the home environment as well, and kind of ensuring that that child has consistency across all of the spaces where they are. And then the final piece, much like with the prior thoughts, is really about that awareness building. So what can we do as advocates for early childhood and ensuring that when we're having conversations about the need to support children and families from birth to age 5, that we are including a conversation about mental health and mental wellness and social emotional development, because that's really key for people to understand, again, that prevention is possible, that if we screen and intervene and address these things early, we can really build up a kiddo's toolkit for success. So I'm going to unshare my screen, and we are actually going to hop into a live thought exchange. I'm going to let Holly take it away in explaining kind of the logistics of this. I am going to participate as well because I can, and I'm excited to. And I'm going to warn you all in advance that it will be kind of quiet while we're doing this, because we're going to be having a conversation virtually. So let me unshare so that Holly can share.
All right. Hopefully everyone can see my screen now, and I put the link in the chat box. You can use your smartphone to scan the QR code you see on my screen. You can type in tejoin.com and the number you see there, or you can just click the link in the chat box. All three ways should work for you to start engaging in the thought exchange. Hopefully most of you participated in the first one, so this will seem like a normal process to you. If you didn't, the quick introduction to it is that it will give you a quick introduction in terms of text to say how it's going to look and how we're doing this. Then it's going to take you to a main question where you're going to start putting in your thoughts, basically trying to answer the question for yourself. The question is, what approach to meeting the mental health needs of our children and families would be most effective in Hayes and Caldwell counties? Hang on, let me restart this for you. There we go. And Alex will probably be able to chime in too to maybe clarify what we mean by approach, but this is a continued conversation from the results that she just shared with you. So thinking about the service, thinking about what parents need access to, families need access to, what service meets their mental health needs. And again, it will be hopefully very quiet in the next couple minutes. And on here, I can already see that 4 people are participating. So this is working in some capacity. I'm going to go ahead and be quiet for just a second to answer any questions in the chat box should they come up, or allow folks to unmute to ask a question. We can help with some technology needs. But otherwise, I will be able to show some different interactive slides here once we get a few thoughts going. And I will actually cut, and I'm going to type in the question into the chat box as well. And remember, this is specifically thinking about the mental health needs. I see, look at this. Okay, 10 participants. We got one thought going. This is great news. I'm very excited. And I know we have about 16 participants today, including Alex and I. So if folks are having any tech difficulties, please reach out and let us know. I'm going to recopy the link into the chat. Showing you a little interactive image here of the folks that are participating, and it links to different thoughts that they're putting out. So we have a few folks who are thinking, a few folks who are already putting some thoughts out there. Sorry, I muted myself there while folks were taking a second to think. I really enjoy this image. I just like seeing all the people pop up.
Yeah, I do too. The spider web. Once you've put in your own thought, you can go and start seeing the thoughts of others and do your rating. That's the part I've gotten to.
Those of you on a computer, you can also do this either on a shared screen or right on your laptop. Cut and paste the link that was in the chat into your browser. We have 5 folks who are looking at comments about bilingual counselors. That's exciting. I see bilingual coming up several times. That's probably going to be a hot button for us later. Hi, Sarah, welcome. Sarah, we're doing a live thought exchange. If you get an opportunity, I'm going to put the link in the chat box for you. A thought exchange is just an anonymous way to allow you to share your thoughts with us about a critical question. And I can also go back, I'm going to give you the QR code. You can scan it with your smartphone if you'd like. But the question that we're trying to answer today is what approach to meeting the mental health needs of our children and families will be most effective in Hayes and Caldwell counties. We're just using this interactive tool so folks can see the interaction as well. Alex and I get a little nerdy and excited about data and visuals. Yeah, Jackie, it's a pretty cool tool. Just kind of allows you to watch the interaction live. Yes, Sarah, join us, please. Yes, yes, yes. All voices are welcome. We are at 99% participation, not including myself. So that is excellent. Thank you everyone for being a part of this process with us. We have more thoughts being added, so feel free to go back into the system to rate and view the other thoughts of your colleagues. We already have 109 ratings. That's amazing.
It's more quiet than I'd like, but I love this. The extrovert in me is like, it's so quiet. It's so weird, but
I wanted Alex to sit in the uncomfortable for a minute. You can also feel free to go back and add a new thought to the original question. You don't have to just put one. Alex, I'm going to stop sharing for just a second because I'm going to give you access to the back end of things and then allow folks to continue to add their thoughts. And then I will reshare where we are in just a second. Alex, just let me know if you can use the link I sent you earlier now to get to the dashboard. Thanks. Really like it too. It allows us to take large group discussion and really synthesize it in real time, which is extremely helpful. So if you thought about how strategic planning would happen in the past, like the sticky notes on the wall, this is a much easier way to synthesize that kind of information. And also share with you now the word cloud that is being created by your work, which I also think is really cool. Let me know if for some reason you can't see it, but you should see a word cloud popping up, letting us know the different types of words you're using in your thoughts and the amount of times they're being listed. So essentially the hot topic items.
as much as I love giant sticky notes with smaller sticky notes on them, this does seem a little more effective and efficient. Being that I have somewhere in my old office a cabinet full of giant sticky notes with smaller sticky notes on them from all the different types of strategic planning I've done.
I know, and I was going to suggest that I could put some music, like some little quiet music in the background, but maybe for
Just a
next time.
little, some like elevator music. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't want to like stress people out. But I was even like, I could put on like the Jeopardy music, like for Final Jeopardy.
Looks like we're still getting some good interaction. For those of you who haven't, maybe if you've taken a minute or two to disconnect from it and want to go back and look, there are a few more thoughts being added now. A few more ratings coming up. We have 158 stars given out already. Thank you for allowing us to use the tool with you all. This is what our little connections map looked like from the start. So while you all are thinking, I find it very soothing.
Yeah, I agree, Mary. I think it would be very stressful to have the Jeopardy music.
But note taken for some soothing meditative music for the next watch this. This back here. I'm going to give this a fresher here. Still got some good interaction going. Okay, Alex, I think we are coming to our capacity here.
Excellent. Okay. I know I have had an opportunity to rate all the thoughts that have been shared, so I feel pretty good about that. So hopefully, and I see from this kind of heat map that the program is creating that everybody's rating as much as they can and want to. You can see that from all those connections being made, which is really exciting. All right. So I still see a little bit of movement. Holly, do you want me to share my screen and the slides that are created? So again, another really cool tool within ThoughtExchange is that it auto creates a slide deck for you as the process is kind of ongoing. Actually, as I say that, let me go ahead and refresh to make sure that the ones I have pulled up have everything included in them. So I do want to go ahead and share that with y'all. We can use that in our discussion. Okay, so can everybody see the browser with the Exchange summary on it? I like how it makes me look like I work with Holly at UT. I do not. Okay. So again, we were focused on this question at hand. What approach to meeting the mental health needs of children and families will be most effective in Hays and Caldwell counties? We have a breakdown of the participants in this thought exchange. So 15 folks participating, 18 thoughts, and 188 ratings were completed in our time together. The word cloud that Holly shared earlier, bilingual got really big for us. I think that's really something that we should note when we're talking about this. Caregivers, parents. So now we get to dive in. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger for y'all. Okay, so our most highly rated thought, that would again be the one with the highest ranking and the most number of people kind of interacting with this particular thought. So a ranking in number of stars of 4.4 with 12 folks who highly rated this particular item is professional development. So ensuring that our early childhood caregivers, professionals in the field, are receiving PD that can help inform their practices around the mental health and wellness of children, and it seems trauma as well. So information and training about mental health and trauma.
Alex, I agree with that one. It said that we could share out. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
This is definitely a discussion.
Okay, so I know that recently I was able to bring in a social emotional counselor to come in and talk to the staff here. And I mean, just a lot of things came out of that, and, you know, talking about trauma and basically the effects that it has on the brains. Just a lot of things came from that training that we had no idea about. So a lot of times when you see certain behaviors, you think that, you know, the kid may be defiant, whereas they're experiencing trauma, which makes their brain react different. So yes, I definitely agree with that, you know, having that PD is beneficial to anyone that's working with children, especially in early childhood.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point, Karen, too, that like, it's not a one and done deal. This isn't, you know, coming in one time and providing that training, because I know over the years, I've had training on trauma and mental health and wellness of young children. I mean, this is the field I work in, but to be reminded of that frequently, I think is really important.
I wanted to speak to that, Alex, if I can. I know that was one of the ones that I put in, one of the comments. I just feel strongly that, you know, the professional development, you know, even though we've had it here in our staff, for our staff here at SMC-ISD, it can't just be a one time. It needs to be ongoing, like you just mentioned. And it changes every year. You know, the kids, the type of trauma that we see has changed in the past year. So we need to be up to date with anything new that's coming up. So it needs to be something that's ongoing. But I think it's critical for all stakeholders, you know, that are working with students in early childhood, you know, come together on this topic. You know, I know this is a great place to exchange these thoughts, and I'm grateful for the invitation, because I think it's not just happening here in my school, it's happening in all early childhood centers, and with caregivers, parents are feeling this too. So I think this is a big topic, and it's a lot to cover.
Yeah. Okay, I saw Sarah and then Valencia. Go ahead, Sarah.
Some professional development training to school counselors in San Marcos in the schools. And so I guess it was all the school counselors in the schools, but we gave one on trauma and actually one on racism and racial trauma specifically. And so, and it was free of charge. I'm just saying, I'm sure that my colleagues would be happy to to do it again for other people. So I just wanted to throw that out because we've already, it wouldn't take much. We've already got it together.
Yeah, I think that's great too, to think about the role that our coalition and collaborative can play in facilitating that, right? We can play host to professionals from Texas State, from our MHDD providers, from these other systems potentially, to be able to disseminate all of this great training and information. Again, not just one time, but maybe an ongoing series of opportunities to kind of learn from different folks, for sure.
Can you share your
Karen, I'm going to
information
have
with us?
Valencia go, since she had her hand up, and then it'll be Karen.
Hey, I just wanted to share something with the group. Whenever we started a parent-run organization, I think it was about 6 years ago, we were providing parent education for teaching parents about mental health and trauma and all these different topics. And we had a lot of providers start coming. And they would tell us that it was so helpful, and the information was so helpful for them, even though they were social workers or they were in the school, just having fresh information. What I would love to see is, if you're already going to be creating a training for providers, you would also offer that training for families. As a parent of a child who is 18 now, and she had early childhood trauma, the schools didn't understand. Her counselors a lot of times didn't understand. She horror stories of, she had very, very traumatic experiences in the schools, just trying to get an education. And so I definitely agree that professional development on children's mental health and the impacts of mental health and trauma, but also the families, if they don't understand trauma at all, you're teaching the providers, and then they're going back home into those environments, and their families don't understand, and their moms don't understand. So really to be, just do like a whole kind of like a wrap around that child would be for you to be doing the professional development, but also be, maybe it's taking that information and just tweaking it a little bit and putting it out for parents to learn, because that's when you're really going to be able to help the child all the way around, is at home, and also, in the services that they're receiving in childcare and different things.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that perspective on it. The language that I've been using lately to kind of capture both of these groups is to say caregiver, because we see our young children, and if we kind of have this approach of like, there are so many people that are caregivers for our young children in our communities. There are the professionals who work in professional spaces, who work in childcare, who work in the pre-K programs, who work in our Head Start centers. And then there are also their parents and their grandparents and their aunts and uncles and all of the family members and neighbors who have interactions and who care deeply for our children. All of these folks, having everybody have an opportunity to kind of receive this information and support, understanding brain development, understanding trauma. I really think it's key to kind of open up our approach, because I think historically we do talk about like, kind of your center-based or your classroom-based staff and your parents. Like, those are the two, but it's like, there's so much more. There's so many other people that are caring for our kids. Karen, I think you had unmuted yourself.
Oh, no, I just put it in the chat. So I was just asking Sarah for her information.
Gotcha. I love it. Making connections, just like we would if we were in person together. Awesome. Okay, so I'm definitely excited to hear that professional development was such a highly rated item on here, because I think we definitely have the capacity to make that happen fairly quickly. I was a little worried that some of these highly rated items are going to be like grants that we're going to have to go out and apply for, and that the time frame might be a little longer. But that to me is something that we can actually start working on very quickly. especially with the support of our colleagues up at Texas State, like Dr. Blaylock. So the next most highly rated was access to affordable mental health resources. So having providers in the community who accept Medicaid or offer their services on a sliding scale based on income, they are few and far between. This is a very accurate assessment of what we have access to across Hays and Caldwell counties. We don't have enough service providers, period. And on top of that, we don't have enough service providers who have the training and capacity to see children under the age of 6, really. There are plenty of folks who, for their own professional reasons, say, hey, that's not me. I don't want to see kids that young. I don't feel prepared for it. And so we just don't have a lot of providers who are seeing our very youngest children. Then so many of the adults, I'm speaking now from the direct service perspective of working with Head Start and home visiting. The majority of the adults that we work with in these programs don't have any health insurance at all. They fall in that gap between adult Medicaid coverage and the Affordable Care Act. They do not get coverage from their employer, and so they just don't have health insurance. And so opportunities for mental health services that are provided on a sliding scale are incredibly limited. There's basically just a couple of places to get that need met. So that is a big area of emphasis, again, both for young children and their adult caregivers to be able to just have access to these services, and working with, our MHDDs and other systems that already exist to advocate for the need for more services is definitely key. Oh, and item number 3. So key thought number 3, we are looking at, more training and professional development, it seems. In this case, both with that kind of caregiver, parents and teachers, so parents and adult caregivers. Adults who interact with young children need the tools to manage their own mental health and to help children in their care. So that seems to me both a combination now of the first 2 thoughts, right? So we're talking about that kind of maybe training, professional development, ongoing, but maybe also ensuring that adult caregivers have access to mental health services, especially our adult caregivers, when so many of our parents and even a lot of our childcare staff, outside of programs like Head Start, a lot of our childcare providers don't necessarily have access to health insurance. And so ensuring that they have an opportunity to get their mental health needs met as well. Does anybody have anything they wanted to share, any comments about those 2 other items?
I was going to say one thing. One of the issues, this access to affordable mental health resources, especially for people who provide services for young children. We have classes at Texas State for people who want to work in play therapy with young children. One of our issues is we have the classes and not enough people to take them, or people who speak Spanish specifically. We need people who are bilingual, and even people who have experience in schools or, teaching children. And money, is a big barrier for people to come in and receive that education. So again, that sort of, to me, this one does bring up the subject of grants, which I know is way down the pipeline, but I think that there might be some ways to use grants to help us reach that goal, but it's more of a long-term goal.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think, how can we as a community create a pipeline of folks into this field? How can we ensure that we have professionals who have maybe worked in an early care and education setting, have all of that great experience, and then find themselves, wanting to take that next step in their career and having an opportunity for them to be able to get an education and a clinical license to be able to practice, and, you know, extra super duper bonus points if they are bilingual, because that is truly the unicorn in our field, is that kind of clinical level professional who has had an opportunity to work in the early childhood space, and understands the unique needs of families with young children, and then also can communicate in English and Spanish and work with families kind of bilingual and bicultural, to really be able to apply their experience and their education, with that kind of cultural lens, so that families can receive that support. And I do think, you know, in thinking about potential, you know, movement towards applying for grants and funding, I think that would have to be a critical part of it, to kind of say, hey, we're going to, you know, make sure that we can supervise interns, so that we can have opportunities for folks who are going through that education to intern locally. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to have to zoom back out for a second so I can navigate these slides. So let's see here. Yep, I had a feeling after looking at that word cloud that we might have, that we might see a theme of bilingual. Obviously, some of these words pop up just because they're thrown out there frequently, but don't have as much to do with the total theme. So obviously mental health, that's what we were talking about, but bilingual, and service provision, those things were popping up frequently. And as you can see, bilingual services definitely came up quite a bit. So the software goes ahead and looks at the different theme categories, and based on the language in each of the thoughts, lets us know which of the thoughts that were most highly rated kind of fall into this particular category. So again, professional development, services for caregivers, and then bilingual parent education was another highly rated one that came up in this under the theme of mental health. Okay.
And I actually think, Alex, that's probably the slides that are going to be the most effective at this moment.
Which ones? The ones that we're looking at right now?
Already gone over, yep.
Yeah. Oh, so someone actually had a thought about creating a pathway for clinical staff. And I think, again, emphasizing, you know, the fact that we need to ensure that folks who are bilingual and bicultural have an opportunity to get into this field. So I see that coming up quite a bit for everybody. So it's both kind of expressing that that's a need, but then maybe also presenting a possible solution, albeit long-term, because you don't kind of start a professional counseling program and get out the next day ready to provide services. It is kind of an investment that we have to be considering. Okay, so in regard to the theme related to service provision, sorry about that, y'all. I know this font is kind of small. So we discussed this particular thought already because it did make it onto the key thoughts slide. So having access, you know, sliding scale and providers who accept Medicaid, but then also lifting up the consultation piece specifically. So a specific type of intervention, which is that infant early childhood mental health consultation, in collaboration with, you know, mental health and developmental disability providers, and other early childhood partners. And then, you know, again, kind of in keeping in theme with that consultation piece, that accessibility is increased when you're providing these services in schools. And I would even, I'm going to use a more expansive definition of the word school and include all of our early care and education spaces. So our Head Start centers, our pre-K classrooms, all of our childcare programs, kind of all of these spaces and places where children are in the care of other folks who are not their parents. These are all of the places where we should be seeking to provide these types of services so that we do increase that accessibility. Because for some kiddos, that's where it's going to happen. It might not be something that their family can really continue to access beyond the space where they're getting it in the school environment. Okay. The word for this particular theme was open, which I kind of love now that I'm looking at it. And I think that really speaks to ensuring accessibility. Making sure that there are multiple spaces and places where families are accessing this information. I will say in my experience as a millennial parent, that even some of the information that I see in social media can be, really interesting, thought-provoking things. Resources like text-based services that provide maybe just a little snapshot of like social emotional development for young children. Making sure that if you're going to have a training session, that there's a virtual option and an in-person option, and that you have opportunities for families who want to receive this information in Spanish, to have it in Spanish, and kind of creating lots of opportunity for folks to get this information in different formats. And then also speaking to the need for some peer support. I think is important. We've talked quite a bit about the need to ensure that we have that clinical level support, but to ensure that we actually are able to meet the needs of everybody, and maybe creating some opportunity for peer-to-peer support as well. Okay. So we have both individual counseling and support groups come up, which is really interesting too. So having those opportunities, again, this is about accessibility, what's going to work best for an individual family, for a particular parent or caregiver, and maybe that one-on-one dynamic with a counselor is really what they're seeking out. For others, maybe it is more the group dynamic. And so again, it's about creating a variety of different opportunities, whether they are professionals or peers in an individual one-on-one dynamic or in a group. Okay. I think that kind of wraps things up.
It does. I was just going to say, Alex, that we have discussed leaving this open for folks who could not attend today. Do you want to speak to that, so that in case the folks who are here, when you get maybe a follow-up email from Alex, feel free to then go back in and see if any of your other colleagues who couldn't come today added comments, et cetera, to continue that discussion, because you can see how quickly it becomes a very rich discussion.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'm so grateful for everybody who was in this Zoom today for participating and putting your thoughts in here, because it really did lead to a much richer discussion, I think, and honestly gives me already some ideas about things that we can take actions that we can start taking immediately. So I'll send the link to this thought exchange in a follow-up email to the whole coalition. I want you to feel free to go back in now that we've kind of had this discussion. You can go back in, add more thoughts, rate more thoughts, share with your colleagues, and hopefully we'll have other folks who weren't with us today go ahead and put their thoughts in and rate the thoughts of others. We'll leave it open for about a week. We were told in consultation with the folks who created this software, that's really the kind of optimal time frame for folks to kind of go in and put their thoughts and then maybe come back a couple of times and rate some thoughts of others. So we'll keep this thought exchange open for about a week. If you between now and then are like, oh my gosh, it would be amazing, please go back, put your thought in, and then make sure that you're kind of looking and seeing how many other thoughts have popped up in between now and then, and rate some of those other thoughts as well. And then once we close that thought exchange, Holly and I will get together and kind of look at that information and data, see if there were other big themes that popped up in that information. And then the next time we all meet as a group, we can kind of dive into that and really start thinking about what our next steps are going to be as a collaborative, and ensuring that our community of early childhood folks and families have access to, especially again, the professional development piece, the psychoeducational piece, kind of those initial training pieces that I think we could probably get off the ground fairly quickly, and then start to kind of form some of the relationships that are necessary to be able to go after some grants and some funding to bring to the community to ensure that we meet that need, because I think those are the kind of two big areas that are popping out to me. So I'll send out a link before the end of the day today for this particular thought exchange. So keep coming back, and then we will have an opportunity to kind of dive into this data just the way we did with the more general information. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. I had us on the calendar until 1, but I want to give you your 30 minutes back because the group was pretty small. We were able to get it done pretty fast. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for being a part of this. I'm really grateful to everybody that was here and participating. And yeah, just make sure that you go back and have an opportunity to look at the new thoughts and new ratings of others. Have a wonderful afternoon, everybody. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Okay.